Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am John Kurtz. Thank you all for joining me. I am remodeling my office. So you may notice the background looks a little bit different today. It's going to look different very, very soon. As soon as I get the rest of the supplies that I need to finish it off, this background is going to look much, much better even than it does right now. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited for that. Getting a little refresh here before football season actually kicks off. But as such, we are getting close to football season, which means we're getting preseason polls. The AP poll is going to come out next week, but we already got the coaches poll this week. And what does that tell us about the Big 12? I think there are a lot of lessons to learn about the Big 12, particularly where one team is ranked. And that is why I want to bring back the discussion today. I feel like it was a very apropos time to bring back the discussion of, okay, can the Big 12 build a national brand in this era, in the college football expanded playoff, post-conference realignment, post-Pac-12 imploding, post-Texas, Oklahoma to the SEC environment and world that we live in? Is it possible for the Big 12 to do that? I think there are some teams that have a leg up. It's not impossible for necessarily anybody in the Big 12 to do it, but there are some teams that definitely have a leg up. And if you're a Big 12 fan, you might want to be rooting for actually outside of your squad. I'm not telling you not to root for your team, but anybody else might be a good rooting interest guide. We did get some unfortunate injury news in the Big 12 that I do want to talk about. That's pretty tough. Sorry to all of our friends in Waco, but we'll discuss what it means. Does it affect your boy here, who is very high on Baylor? Have Baylor in my Big 12 championship game. Will I actually take them out of the Big 12 championship game? We shall see. And a little Project Rudy update / a very insightful look into what a Power 4 school is going through right now in the revenue sharing era. Basically, somebody unearthed some slides of a presentation given by a Power 4 athletic director that is not one of the big power brands. And I'll just say that it creates a pretty dire picture for, almost anybody that's trying to come up with the $20+ million for revenue sharing on an annual basis. So could definitely have some reverberations in the Big 12, especially when we've already heard Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard talk about, hey, do we want to be Northern Iowa or Iowa State? Because we're going to have to do something as a university to come up with this money. So might provide a roadmap for where this is all headed. And it's down a path that I don't think anybody really necessarily wants, which leads us back to Cody Campbell. And, quite frankly, all roads these days basically seem to lead back to Cody Campbell. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It is totally free. Just one click is all I ask, or 2 clicks, really, if you're going to subscribe and like the video, but it's very simple. Thank you all for doing that. That is totally free. You guys can fill up the chat as always. Make that lively. Let's make it fun. And if you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can click the $sign below the chat box to submit a super chat. Appreciate everybody who supports that way. And again, it is a way to guarantee that your contribution makes it on the show here tonight. And we've also got the Venmo option, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to leave a question or comment there, if you're not watching this live, I will kick off the next show with it. So you can still be a part, even if you are not here live for the live show. I know you're all with me in spirit, okay? Everybody who's not catching it live. Thank you all. Those of you who are here, we're finishing off the anonymous player survey and the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter next week. So be sure you are subscribed, ofbnews.com. Join the 5,000 plus Big 12 fans who are now subscribed to Open for Business, ofbnews.com to get subscribed there, or you can click the link in the description of this video. Either way, doesn't matter to me. Just make sure you are prepared to find out the craziest things that have happened to players in the portal, craziest things coaches have tried to do to get Big 12 players in the portal and transfer to their school. Looking forward to that. Okay, let's start with a super chat. We've got one here from Securities Attorney HB. Securities Attorney HB, thank you for a very generous donation. I appreciate your support immensely, my friend. Thank you very much. Securities attorney HB says you might need to do this in another session, but which non-conference games are the most important to show how the Big 12 could be against the SEC, ACC, or Big 10? All right, let's rattle through this. Last time, I've got to give a shout out to Alan. He corrected me on the fact that I left KU Mizzou off of that. That is definitely one example of a Big 12 playing an SEC in the non-con this year that could really help out, especially because the game is at Mizzou. So, I mean, if Kansas goes into Columbia and wins that game, and that's a Mizzou team that's been winning like 10 games in the SEC, it feels like the last couple of years. Did they hit 10 last year? A couple of years ago in the Cotton Bowl. Anyway, obviously the big one, the biggest one of the offseason, I would say, is Oklahoma State going to Oregon, just in terms of potential there. If you do win, the problem with that is it does not seem very likely that a team that went winless in the Big 12 last year is going to win at Autzen Stadium. But I mean, it's out there. It's a game. It's happening. Auburn Baylor is another big one that you're going to hear a lot about. Baylor gets an opportunity to play Auburn at home, breaking in Jackson Arnold, going on the road. Have they really fixed Jackson Arnold right away? That will be a very big one as far as the SEC goes. The ACC, really, you've got two cracks here, and it's Baylor in week 2, then going on the road to SMU, and then TCU is going to host SMU in the non-con as well. So SMU, a team that I think a lot of people are really high on, think could be as good or better than they were last year with Kevin Jennings back this year. That's a win, at least one of those you'd get a lot of run for, being that, hey, if both teams beat SMU, maybe it doesn't become quite as special for the second, which I believe would be TCU, of those two teams to play them. But Baylor, if they went on the road and beat SMU, you should get a lot of run for that, being that, again, that was a playoff team from last year. So that will really help. I'm trying to think if there are other Big Tens that I'm missing. I mean, Iowa State, Iowa, obviously. But my theory on that is, I do feel like, I said this the other day, I feel like Iowa State does not get as much credit, at least for the Big 12, but it probably goes for Iowa State too. But the league doesn't get as much credit for that as it should, being that it's like a solid 8-win Big 10 team that you're beating every year, because Iowa has just turned into a meme, right? Like, I think if it were, I don't know if there's another grade, because the Big 10, there's not much of a middle tier there. Iowa really is the middle tier. I was going to say like Penn State, maybe like Penn State from like 3 or 4 years ago, but even that's not totally fair. James Franklin's been a little bit better. But if you're beating like an 8-4 Big 10 team, you should get more run for that, especially doing it on the road like Iowa State did last year. But everyone's already like, well, Iowa can't score. They never have a quarterback. So why does it mean anything that you beat them? Plus the rivalry, I honestly feel like kind of hurts there too. So anyway, I would submit that. So we've got Oklahoma State, Oregon from the Big 10. We've got Iowa State, Iowa from the Big 10. SEC, we've got Auburn, Baylor, and Kansas, Mizzou. There is, I mean, like Arizona State goes on the road to Mississippi State. That's just like a game they better win. And then ACC, yeah, the SMU game. So I hope that answers your question, securities attorney HB. And let me know in the chat, guys, if I am missing anything to that. But thank you very much for your support, securities attorney HB. I really, really appreciate that a lot. Hey, wet blanket. Fair enough. Oregon is a little unknown this year. I'm count me as a skeptic. At least, like, I need to see it. I need to see it with Dante Moore at quarterback for Oregon. Just based on what I had heard about Oregon kind of sniffing around Sam Leavitt this offseason, like, it makes me think they maybe don't have confidence that he's going to be a totally elite quarterback. But we shall see. We shall see. And hey, if Mike Gundy can pull a rabbit out of a hat, I mean, I'll be standing on this very desk that's right in front of me that I built this weekend doing a dance if that were to happen. So, Fongway, thank you. Cincinnati versus Nebraska, right out of the chute. I'm Cincy fans considering going to that. My buddy Cole from the 3 Mob podcast was trying to work on me to get me at Arrowhead to go to that game. The only thing with that is just be dealing with a lot of obnoxious Nebraska fans. But I don't know if someone has some Cincy gear that they want to send my way for that game at Arrowhead. Considering it for sure. Man, I'm excited for football to be back here, guys. We're very, very close. We're now inside of 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about K-State, Iowa State. Very exciting. Okay. Thank you all. Let's kick it off with this. The coaches poll is out, and it just proved Brett Yormark right. All these Brett Yormark haters, people bringing a terrible narrative to the table, I think have been proven wrong by something that we see before the season has even started. And it might set up who you need to root for in the league this year. Okay, so let me explain. In Big 12 country, we're not real fans of preseason polls. I don't know if you have heard, if you've been paying attention lately. The Big 12 decided to ditch its preseason poll. Now, I feel like the Big 12 has taken a lot of shots for that. I don't remember hearing that much about it when it just quietly went away from like the Big 10, some other conferences. G5s, I think, don't do it. Some of them anyway. But the Big 12 created a big hubbub, not just because they did it, but then Brett Yormark was talking about it at Big 12 Media Days when, good and bad, the league gets some spotlight. And there was a lot of criticism about like, this actually is a story. This actually can help your league. Like, what a ridiculous thing. I think it made all the sense in the world that Brett Yormark didn't do it. And Yormark said in front of everybody, hey, it hurt Arizona State. I would say it hurt Arizona State and BYU. It hurt BYU in the at-large discussion because they got virtually none when they had a better resume than Miami, who was right in the thick of it. But even Arizona State, they finished behind Boise and probably should not have. But because they started the year picked last in the Big 12, I think it clearly dictated a narrative. And if there was a Big 12 talking point that had coaches kind of following in line throughout the entire week in Frisco, or the 2 days in Frisco that they were there, it was probably that. I did hear some coaches like Chris Kleiman chiming in on that they agree. They don't like the narrative that forms with preseason polls. So understand that in Big 12 country, we come by some skepticism of preseason polls, honestly. Okay. And my expectation for any of these preseason polls this year was going to just be, you might as well just name, hell, maybe you can even create a sponsorship for, I would say, like spots 17 through 25 in the top 25 that like, hey, here's what'll happen. The top 16 is going to be filled with 85% SEC and Big 10 teams. They'll squeeze in Clemson. I guess it can't be Florida State this year. They'll squeeze in Clemson and Miami, and then maybe like SMU is 16. And then you'll have the Big 12 just littered throughout. You'll have like 5 Big 12 teams, bang, 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 from like 17 to 25. That just seems like it's the habit. It's the habit that everybody's in right now. That's kind of what it's going to be. And we got close to that. But there was a team that slipped through the cracks. And I think that team that slipped through the cracks is where a lot of the discussion, the genesis of that discussion comes from here tonight. That team is Arizona State, by the way. Okay. And to me, it proves Brett Yormark right, and it opens up the $1 million Big 12 question. But let me start from bottom to top here. Okay. 4 Big 12 teams did receive votes. All right. So not quite in that top 25, but you've got Kansas receiving 6 votes. Colorado got 12. Okay. Honestly, I guess it shouldn't be surprising. I was based on what the team is there. Let me just strike that from the record. That should not be surprising at all. Colorado is going to generate extra attention. TCU got 24. Baylor got 76. So look, I think it's very silly of everybody in the national, or I keep thinking this is like the AP poll. It's the coaches poll. Coaches. I think it's very silly of the coaches to leave my guy Dave Aranda and Baylor out of that preseason top 25. But hey, that's their prerogative. Texas Tech is in there at number 24. Okay. Texas Tech's a very interesting case. If you looked at that and said, man, all the hype they're getting, number 1 portal class, and they're only number 24 in the country, what is that? I would say wait till the AP poll comes out this week. I would bet, what is the saying? Dollars to donuts, whatever those are. I would, whatever that means, I would bet it that Texas Tech is going to be ranked higher in the AP poll. I think the media is much more susceptible to the hype, much more susceptible to, oh man, look at this recruiting class or this portal class that they put together. Whereas I think coaches look at this a little bit more like, all right, like, hey, that's great, Joey. You guys got a lot of talent. You've clearly got some money to throw around there, but it's not super easy to just take the talent, magically make it work. Like there's, we'll see. Let's wait and see what that coaching job is going to look like to make all that talent work. That's my theory there. BYU's at number 23. Shout out to the Cougs, man. This was surprising, legitimately surprising. It tells me that the coaches who watch more of Jake Retzloff in depth than you, I, or anybody else, they're watching this guy on film. It tells me that they think he is much more replaceable than maybe the average person does. At least that they think he is fairly replaceable. If you're going to keep BYU in the top 25, obviously you can say some respect, a bit of a nod to what happened last year, respect to Kalani Sitake, whatever it may be. But like, people aren't stupid. They know that BYU just lost its quarterback, and lost a quarterback, a starting quarterback post spring ball who was a returner. Like, that's not easy. If you're still going to have them in the top 25, to me, I would take that as a positive sign if I'm a BYU fan, that like, hey, the coaches seem to think that Retzloff is replaceable enough. Iowa State's at number 21. I think it's just it's a lot of respect for the holy trinity of Matt Campbell, Rocco Becht, and John Heacock. That's what I think Iowa State's team really rests on here. Obviously, the receiver question, everybody knows about that. But 21, nice season last year. Respect for those guys. K-State at number 20. You know how I said you could basically just rename 17 through 25 in the top 25, just like the Big 12 slots, however you want to do it. Call it the All-State back half of the top 25, the All-State 12 back half of the top 25, whatever it is you want to do. K-State could just permanently lock up this number 20 spot that they're at right now, because that feels like where K-State is always going to be in a preseason top 25. So if you're counting, we're up to 4 Big 12 teams there. We've got 4 Big 12 teams ranked in the Big 12 zone, unofficial TM. But how about this? Arizona State snuck up to number 11. Arizona State snuck up to number 11. Now that could be a big help to the Sun Devils. Think about where they started last year, a 3-9 team coming off that performance, picked last in the preseason Big 12 poll. They're now starting at number 11 in the coaches. We'll see if the AP is going to be quite as high, but that is a ton of respect from the coaches to Kenny Dillingham, to Jordan Tyson, to Sam Levitt, to that defense where, again, the word, at least what I was hearing, like post-spring, was that Arizona State really felt like the defense could be better than the offense this year. That's a healthy amount of respect. And when it's all about this narrative conversation, how much does the preseason poll matter to your season? I think it does matter quite a bit. I think it's almost inarguable how much these things really can matter in terms of providing you a little bit of breathing room, providing you some room for error. I think that's one of the big advantages for Arizona State with this. But it also, like, to me, this just so proves Brett Yormark right. Like, he's kind of saying, like, hey, you guys really make or break teams with perception and what these polls mean, and like narratives that form about a team. And like, just take Arizona State at number 11 this year based on the fact that they had one very good season. And then they lost a guy who was 40% of their offense in Cam Scadaboo. The coaches then put them at number 11. Like, these polls matter. The narratives can flip very quickly. The narrative flipped on Arizona State very quickly, but it took them taking Texas to the wire. Like, it took Arizona State taking Texas to the wire. That respect was not there before. They were still ranked below Boise State by the playoff selection committee, and nobody really thought much of their game against Texas and it being much of a game heading into it. It took that game, and with one game, you snap your fingers and bam, here's Arizona State, the number 11 team in the country, even though they lost their best player. To me, it's like all the proof in the world that, yes, these narratives mean something and are very fickle and can flip on a dime. Like, let me ask you this question to kind of accentuate Yormark's point here. If Arizona State had started last season at number 11 in the AP poll and had the exact same season, right? Start 5-2 and then get hot to end the year, would they have been ahead of Boise in the playoff rankings? Because I think the answer is yes. At 5-2, losses that at the time, Texas Tech, that was not like a horrible loss, But Cincinnati is one that didn't look great. Now, granted, okay, quarterback injury, a factor there. But a 5-2 start, they might, to me, they're probably down in the Big 12 zone at that point, right? You're probably sitting there at like 23, 24, 25. After beating K-State and BYU back to back, K-State on the road, like I would think you're vaulting back up, flirting with the top 10, 11 or 12 maybe by that point in the season. And then you smash Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game while Boise just plays UNLV for a second time. I don't know, man. I think Arizona State at that point is jumping Boise. They certainly would never have dealt with any of the talk about Tulane or Army jumping them, which was one of the most ridiculous things that the Big 12 has had to endure in a long time last year when that was a conversation. Hey, could the Big 12 get left out because there will be 5 higher rated conference champions than them? I don't think any of that happens for sure. So the narratives matter. This buys Arizona State breathing room. It shows very much so that what happens right now in August when we float these things out there, or July with the Big 12 preseason poll, it has a real impact on what's going to happen throughout the season. So if Arizona State's going to drop a game or two, they're still going to be much, much, much better off than they were last year, just from a perception standpoint to everybody. And so, hey, ride the lightning, man. Arizona State, do as much with this as you can. A good chance the Sun Devils are going to be in the top 10 by the end of September, or really it's like the middle of September, because they will have played 3 games by the 13th. They got to win that game at Mississippi State, which I'm not saying, look, respect Paul Feinbaum, who took the shot, I believe it was at Iowa State a couple of years ago, saying, hey, go play at Mississippi State at night and Davis Wade and all that. I've been to a game at Davis Wade Stadium. I watched K-State win a road game there. It is loud. I mean, I understand how that could be pretty loud. That was an 11 a.m. kickoff, I think. It was not a night game. I'm sure. I'm respectful of it. It's not a gimme, but Arizona State probably should be 3-0. Directional Arizona at Mississippi State, and then they play Texas State. Again, not a pushover, but they should be 3-0 if they win those 3 games. Most likely, I would think they slip into the top 10, and it'll be really nice for the Big 12 to have a top 10 team sitting there in the middle of September. Could set up a monster game with Baylor, which is the conference opener there for those two. Could set up a monster game, depending on how Baylor goes through its non-con schedule. But all of this leads me to another question, which I think is the more important, like, big picture question here for the league, because it was not as important, like, okay, was Brett Yormark actually right? I don't think that, whatever. People can nitpick Brett Yormark's decision. I don't think it has a whole lot to do with much of anything other than it's happening in July in the summer when we're all bored and we all just want football content. We need something to talk about. What's a little bit more significant is, like, long term, can the Big 12 produce a big brand? Can the Big 12 produce a Clemson? Let's put it that way. Can the Big 12 produce a Clemson? Is that possible? Is that possible in this day and age of college football? Even if you're not going to go all the way to Clemson, because I understand the multiple national titles won by Dabo, can the Big 12 produce a legitimate national brand? I think there are precious few schools that really have that opportunity. And so I will give you the basic list here from the Big 12. Now, I will start off by saying that any team in the Big 12, if they win enough, if you win in the playoff enough, you can absolutely do this, because Arizona State is a perfect example here. The reason we're having this conversation is because Arizona State, I mean, more or less with one performance, one game that they didn't even win in the playoff, vaulted itself all the way up to number 11. Now, they don't get that opportunity without having a nice season, right? A 10-2 regular season, winning the Big 12 championship, all of that I understand. But it was really that one game that launched the conversation. They were 3-9 the year before. Nobody thought anything of Kenny Dillingham at Big 12 Media Days in 2024. Nobody was talking about that team at all in Vegas. Nothing. So you can flip this very quickly with performance in the playoff. So I wouldn't put that past any school. Whoever you want to talk about. UCF goes out and does it this year. Rich Rod goes out and does it this year. Brent Brennan goes out and does it this year in the playoff. You can flip that narrative around, because I don't think any of those schools are in like a worse perception standpoint, worse perception place than Arizona State was last year. Okay. But I think you got to look at this and be a little bit optimistic if you're a Big 12 fan and say, well, hey, look what happened there. Arizona State has the one season, the one performance against Texas, don't even finish the job when they should have. And the door to respect is cracked open. The door to trying to build a national brand is cracked open because they were damn near in the top 10 when I think there's just such an aversion for anybody out there to put a Big 12 team in the top 10 of anything. I think no matter what, like you're swimming so far upstream on that because the perception just is, well, that conference is not very good. I mentioned earlier, Arizona State not only gets the nod, but they get the nod when they lose their best player, who is 40% of their offensive production from last year. So think about, to prove my point about what you could do in the playoff, what would have happened if they won? Might be a preseason top 10 team. Okay. So anybody can do this with winning. Anybody can do this with winning. But I think there are some other schools that have built-in advantages that help you out in that conversation. And I would just say, if we're going to think about this like Mario Kart, you got to go win the race to win your national brand here, right? But if you are a school with some of these extra advantages, while you're winning along the way, you could hit the little mushroom that it gives you a speed burst, gives you a little bump. Sometimes when you hit those ramps and it sends you flying further, right? They speed you up over the ramp. It'd be like hitting one of those things. So you get a little extra boost while you're doing the same thing as somebody else. Everybody can get there, but it might be a little bit easier with a little bit of helping hand if you are one of these schools, okay? Arizona State, I think, like they've already just got a leg up by virtue of what they did last year. They had a really nice playoff performance. But if we're talking built-in advantages, I mean, you guys know who's coming, number one, these days in the Big 12. It's Texas Tech. It's Texas Tech because of the perception and what this offseason has been like just for their profile. They have become a disruptor, which is exactly what Brett Yormark wants. It's what he loves. You've heard Tyrell Kirkham, the CMO of the Big 12, come on this show before and say, like, we're trying to be disruptors. Well, Texas Tech, love them or hate them, think they're going to succeed or not, Texas Tech has been a disruptor this offseason because they signed the number one or number two portal class, depending on where you look. And they've already, with Alex Ojo, thank you to the Texas Tech fan who corrected me in the comments on that, with Alex Ojo and, Guyton, forgetting his first name. Anyway, the 5-star recruits that have already committed now in future classes, another one that's basically crystal balled to Texas Tech. They have really shaken up the apple cart and they have gotten the attention of everybody, right? You know, somebody standing in a crowd jumps up on a table and screams like, hey, look at me. They've gotten everybody's attention. Doesn't mean that everybody's not going to look at them and then look right back away if it's not something captivating. Like, you got to win and finish it off. But Texas Tech has generated everybody's attention. And I think there is a thought now, like, oh, like if Texas Tech wins, like they could sustain this because they've got the billionaire with the money. So that helps. That helps. And there's also Texas Tech has a bunch of legitimate NFL talent because they went out and got all of the best defensive linemen that were out there in the portal. So that, again, helps. That's a leg up for Texas Tech. It is definitely a leg up for Texas Tech. I will say BYU. I think BYU has, a better brand than we may have given them credit for if the coaches are going to stick BYU at 23. Now, I think, or was it 24? I'm sorry. In the top 25. Okay. I'll say yes, some of that might have to do with Jake Retzloff. But BYU, I've done plenty of videos on this channel about how that brand is continuing to move in the right direction. Football, basketball, everything's getting cooler in Provo. I think being in the Big 12 has helped elevate them. It's been a mutually beneficial relationship. They had an excellent season last year. People are taking notice of the recruiting wins like Ryder Lyons, everything that's happening on the basketball side, AJ DeBonsta, Rob Wright, and the NIL and resources that BYU has. I think they have a bit of an edge, not just because of the resources, but because of what people think of them now. It's trending upward in the right direction. Of course, I know some of you will hate this, but Colorado has some built-in advantages with Coach Prime being there. It's one that could be super fleeting. I mean, that could be gone tomorrow, not only because of the health issues, but if he wins and he goes and takes a different job, like we know about the flirtation openly, basically, with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys this offseason. Like, yeah, that could be one that disappears quickly, but it's at least there right now. Colorado has that built-in advantage, meaning you guys know as well as I do. I mean, if Colorado starts winning 10, 11 games every year and getting to the playoff, it's going to take off like a rocket. One of the stories that came out this week was that I think it was a BetMGM. Colorado's the most bet team in college football. When it comes to the over-unders, they're the most bet on both sides. They are the team where more people than anybody else have taken the over and more people than anybody else have taken the under. They're still a huge needle mover. And honestly, I almost broke that out into its own topic, thinking like, well, my thought has been Bill Belichick's going to suck up a lot of that oxygen and take up the same place, sort of the novelty college football coach viewership is going to tend to gravitate toward him this year as opposed to Coach Prime. Maybe there's enough for both to go around, and maybe Coach Prime continues with that. It's a big needle mover, man. And like it or not, it's good for the Big 12, and like it or not, it would give Colorado more of an edge here. And then I kind of just lumped the rest of the teams that I think at least have a little something, all just in one category, because to me, it's all kind of the same thing. Just some extra juice from being solid winning programs for the most part over the last 5 to 10 years. Some with higher highs and lower lows, some a little bit more just consistent. But that group to me is K-State, Utah, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Iowa State. Baylor is the one that's like kind of a different. They're different there because it's been more sporadic, higher highs and then some low lows mixed in there, where like K-State, Utah, Oklahoma State, Iowa State have all just been pretty consistent. And so there is some brand equity there. There's notoriety that's been built up. Think about the principle that I've talked so many times about last year. Had Oklahoma State, Utah, and K-State picked up there at the top of the Big 12 standings, actually been good, Big 12 would have had a much better shot at getting multiple teams into the playoff. That's just a reality. So at the end of the day, the key is one team's going to have to at least get to the playoff consistently. Certainly winning there would help, but at least be getting to the playoff consistently. Nothing will trump that. But if you're already at the table, okay, winning and getting to the playoff consistently is table stakes, get you to the table. Having those advantages that I just rattled off for everybody else there, get you some extra chips to compete with, right? And get you some extra chips to compete with when you're trying to build a brand. If the Big 12 is going to build a big brand, and that would be beneficial for the league. It's also something that in an era where everybody's, it's every man for himself, everybody's fighting for everything that they can get in terms of trying to build up their profile for Super League or next round of realignment, whatever it's going to be. That's obviously very, very helpful and important to all the schools out there. Okay, appreciate everybody being here. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Much appreciate everybody who does that. It's totally free. Just give me 1 click or 2 clicks for both of them. If you are so inclined, you can also click the $ below the chat box to contribute to the channel with a super chat. It will guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, and I very much appreciate everybody who does that as well. You can also chime in on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. That's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo with a question or comment. If you're not watching this live, you leave me a question or comment there, I will kick off the next show with it. So once again, easy way to be a part of the channel if you're not here live. And hey, great way to support what I'm doing right now is to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. That's ofbnews.com, ofbnews.com to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Okay, before we proceed, get to some injury news in the Big 12. Let's say hello to my good friends at SeatGeek, guys. How about that? Thank you to SeatGeek for partnering with me on this video. College football season is here, guys, and that means we all need to find good deals on tickets, all right? And the best place to do that is SeatGeek. I have to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek. So obviously, college football is covered, but if you're a music guy like me, it's perfect for concerts. I'm buying a ton of concert tickets this fall. And I tell you what, I have my eye on those Holy War tickets for BYU and Utah coming up as well. And man, all you got to do is open up the app. It's perfect. You can go check what's going on here, find the green dots in the seat. That means they're good deals. Red dots, maybe not so much, but SeatGeek will help you find the best deals on seats depending on where it is that you are trying to sit. They're each rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you guys know I'm here for you. I've got a code for you. Code Kurtz gets you $20 off your tickets. Again, that's code Kurtz for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase with promo code Kurtz. make sure you just click the link in the description to download the app and have that code on hand and ready to go. Guys, I'm here to help you out. I've got your back. Hit up my friends at SeatGeek. Promo code Kurtz, everybody. Promo code Kurtz. When you're buying your tickets this fall, I know everybody's going to be getting some football tickets or maybe some concert tickets. Let me know if you're going to go see Blink-182 as well. Okay, major injury news in the Big 12. Unfortunately, man, is my Big 12 title prediction already shot here in the middle of August thanks to a preseason camp injury? I mean, say it ain't so, my friends. Say it ain't so. You guys know, if you've been watching the show for a while, if you pay attention, you follow me on Twitter, whatever. I'm very high on Baylor this year. Also high on Arizona State. That is my Big 12 championship game that I predicted in the officially unofficial Gambling Gauchos preseason media poll. Baylor, Arizona State is my title game. I think the blueprint for Baylor to be getting there, to take the step, which I will remind everybody, for anybody that thinks that's some kind of crazy prediction, Baylor, if they had batted down the Hail Mary from Shedeur Sanders in Colorado, in Boulder, Baylor would have been in the Big 12 championship game last year. That's how close they already were. So my thought here is I think the defense will take a step forward to hopefully just like average. And I understand that's been an issue with Dave Aranda, who's the defensive guy. I think they can take a step forward in the offense. If it just keeps humming at what it was last year, that's going to be a really tough operation to stop, because that is one hell of an offense. I mean, Sawyer Robertson, arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12. I know Sam Levitt would absolutely have something to say about that. And when I did my anonymous player survey of about 30 players at Big 12 Media Days, Sam Levitt did come back the winner. Avery Johnson actually was second before he got to Sawyer Robertson, but I think people are sleeping on Sawyer Robertson a little bit there. You watch how he played in the last month and a half of the season. I don't know that there's a Big 12 quarterback you would take over him. You've also got Bryson Washington, very dynamic, 1,000-yard rusher as a freshman, helped form a really dynamic backfield tandem with Sawyer Robertson, but he also formed a pretty dynamic backfield tandem with Dawson Pendergrast, who's another running back for the Bears. More on that in a moment. But Josh Cameron is a part of this too, returning receiver. He had almost 800 yards last year. Solid year for him. Baylor just, they really, 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 really can get going. They really can get going with that offense, okay? 671 rushing yards last year, though, for Dawson Pendergrast, who formulated a nice 1-2 punch, man. Nice 1-2 punch. Dawson Pendergrast is now out for the year. That's the unfortunate injury news today. So I know that it's not one of the big three, or if you want to just limit it to the big two, Bryson Washington and Sawyer Robertson, it's not one of those guys on the offense, but that is a pretty productive piece. I mean, you've got an RB2 that's averaging 5.5 yards per carry, and like Baylor's offense, I mean, passing game was solid to good, but it was that ground game was just torching people. And so I think this matters more than some RB2s going down would, because of the production that's there. Now, I know Baylor fans will run to tell me they've got young talent there, and I agree. I mean, Caden Knighton, we'll talk about him. He's going to be probably the next guy in line, but you got to take a second to ponder what exactly this is going to mean. Dave Aranda, here's what Dave said, by the way, to reporters, and saying that he's out for the season. Quote, "It's going to take the majority of the season to come back from the surgery. We were hoping for better news with seeing the doctors and the x-rays and that, but it's something that Dawson's wrapping his mind around, and we're all here to support him." Aranda also said, quote, "I feel good about our depth behind him. We've got some young players that are now going to be pressed into playing a little bit earlier than maybe they were thinking." So it could be a good thing in the long term as well for Baylor to get these guys, or if it's just going to be Caden Knighton, some extra reps, some extra opportunities. But this is a win now kind of year. Maybe for Dave Aranda's job. I mean, I think last year should go a decent way toward getting him off the hot seat with the finish. But you certainly can't be sub 500. But Baylor is thinking Big 12 championship, and they should be, obviously, as evidenced by my prediction there. And Caden Knighton, look, if you watched him in the Army All-American game, 103 yards, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was the MVP. This looks like this could absolutely be a dude. Maybe, perhaps there's a higher ceiling there for the offense with this. But I like having a guy that was as dynamic as Pendergrass was, that you could trust as running back 2. I do think that that's a valuable thing here, especially when Baylor so heavily relies on that rushing offense. And you may need that firepower. I'm really thinking like week 2. Now, there's also the storyline of like, hey, on down the line, do you get some extra wear and tear? What happens late in the season when your backs are getting a little bit more beat up and you're just more thin there now? But I'm thinking about, look, Auburn and SMU right out of the chute. You want all hands on deck for both of those games. SMU, I'm thinking about a little bit more here, because if there's a game that turns into a shootout, that you might really need every single bit of ammunition that you have, it would feel more like SMU, and especially with that game being on the road, that's a team that offensively is probably going to provide Baylor's defense a lot of problems. But, Auburn too. Okay. I just have a hard time seeing Auburn scoring. I mean, look, I think Baylor's going to win that game, if you can't tell where I'm leaning here. But Jackson Arnold, I saw enough struggle out of him, and I know Seth Luttrell in Oklahoma and Brent Venables, all that. But I saw enough struggle out of him that I don't know that Auburn's going to have him ready to go week 1 in a tough, hostile environment on the road. So I don't think they're going to score nearly as much as SMU is. And so does that, back to my original question, does that derail my Big 12 title game prediction? If I'm just thinking about it through the lens of the non-conference schedule and how important that is. Very important thing for the Big 12. I've said Baylor is the most important team in the league this year in a way, because of what they can accomplish with their non-con. But that won't obviously back me off of my Big 12 title game prediction, even if one of those games now tilts a different way. I do think you have to take into consideration, though, how much does the wear and tear factor go into that down the stretch run of the season. But I actually feel like the counter to that could be, well, then maybe, you give Caden Knighton some extra time to get his feet wet, and maybe by the end of the year, he's really rolling. Plus, the other thing for Baylor is, like, the end of the year, that schedule softens up quite a bit, a ton. I mean, you go look at the front half to the back half of Baylor's schedule. It's crazy, the disparity there. So would it change my take on the Big 12 title game? No. I will still have Baylor in the Big 12 title game. But it is a significant injury. This is a significant contributor on a Big 12 title contender, and it's a significant contributor from the most important asset of Baylor's team, I think, which is the rushing offense. So it certainly takes away some margin for error for what Baylor has to work with this year. So anyway, it's like last of all here. I just finished the whole damn segment. My apologies. But Dawson Pendergrass, my heart's out to him. That's tough. This is brutal. You never want an injury like that at this time, when we're all sitting here clamoring for the season to start, and now, the season is done before it even gets going for him. So certainly feel for him. And look, Baylor fans, I do feel for you too there, but I'm still very excited to watch this offense this year. I did want to address one thing that I saw from, because it was a fair call out here from Bracket Cat. John, it's cute that you still think the majority of coaches are the ones actually voting in that poll. Look, I know that it has the reputation of being basically an SID poll. You've got the sports info directors doing that for the coaches. I fully understand that. I do think it's still being at least in the realm of coaches and not in just the hands of media members probably has a little bit more of a skew toward what coaches think, right? A sports info guy, a staffer, if it's going to be a director of football operations, whoever you think it is that's filling this thing out, it's probably more in the orbit of the coaches and has a better idea of like what the coaches think, what their opinions are on teams than just what like a media narrative is going to be out there. So fair call out. I am not so naive as to think that all the coaches are actually voting in this thing every single week. Okay. But that did make me laugh. That was, it's like let's just pat John on the head here a little bit. Like, oh, John, oh, that's very cute of you to think that. I do understand. I understand the thought there. Absolutely. Let's say hello to Alan. What's up, Alan? Alan, good to see you here. Alan says, John, can't wait for the season to start. We'll be participating in communion at the wheel prior to the Fresno State game. Love that, Alan. All JK show listeners, welcome to come. Proud to belong to the Big 12. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. There you go, guys. You got an official invitation to the wheel on August 23rd. As both, that's flying under the radar, everybody. Kansas opens the season the same day that K-State does. That's like a 5 o'clock kickoff, if I'm not mistaken. So you'll get K-State and Iowa State in the early window, and then have a couple of hours to run over there to Lawrence, and then you get KU Fresno to open up the new stadium, which it looks very nice. I think I said this the other day, Alan. I don't need to tell you this, but it looks very nice, and I know K-State fans spend a lot of time on the internet, anyway, some on the internet, or opposing fan base. I've even seen other fans being like, man, I really wanted to hate this thing, but it looks nice. People always want to hate, but it looks very good. I don't think you can deny that at all. So appreciate you, Alan. I hope and trust that you'll be watching K-State, Iowa State that day as well. And can't get here soon enough. So I hope you enjoy it, my friend. Thank you for your support of the show as always. Michael, what's up, Michael? Michael says, really still want BYU versus K-State conference championship game. Love BYU doubted. Well, it helps when you lose your starting quarterback, you're going to get more doubts. So that, from that standpoint, I guess there's a silver lining for you. Although, Michael, I was just talking about, BYU's still in the top 25 from the coaches or /SID /director of football ops poll. They're still in the top 25, which to me was a pretty big sign of respect, actually, at least from one poll. We'll see about the rest of them. But yeah, BYU is going to be flying under the, to your point, BYU will be flying under the radar more so than they would have been had that not happened with Retzlaff. So I can see why you embrace being in that position for sure. But great to see you here, man. Thank you for being here in the chat tonight. Okay, please like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It's ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. To subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, you can leave a super chat like Alan and Michael did by clicking the $sign below the chat box. Just click that $sign below the chat box in order to do that. You can also continue to load up the chat, and we'll see. We'll see what pops up there. Look like this. BYU football. BYU is going to be fine. I was reading BYU football in the Deseret News earlier today about the post scrimmage report there. If I'm reading the tea leaves on Twitter.com correctly, that's a very dangerous thing to do here, but feels to me like the Bear Bachmeier hype is really starting to kick into gear. Am I wrong about that, BYU fans? It feels like there's more and more buzz for Bear Bachmeier to be the guy, which is, I'll be honest, as an outsider here, somebody whose success and happiness this fall would not be tied to a freshman at quarterback. That to me is the most exciting, intriguing option as an outsider. I would love to see Bachmeier be the guy that wins it. I will be much more excited to tune in if that is what is going to happen. So that had my ears perking up, but I know the answer from Kalani Sitake was really like, hey, we're going to have to start cutting down some reps here. Aaron Roderick maybe was saying that too. Going to have to start cutting down some reps here. So we'll figure out a pecking order pretty soon. I'm excited to see what that pecking order is going to be. Pacific Northwest Ute. Thank you for being here. Pacific Northwest Ute. Taking some shots. Says it's really cute that BYU fans aspire for the conference championship game. Pacific Northwest Ute, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for being here. I hate that I'm about to have to do this to you, but BYU was much closer last year than Utah was by about, 4 or 5 games? Would it be 4 games technically? I was trying to think through conference standings there. Either way, there's a pretty big gap there between where Utah was and where BYU was last year, okay? Anyway, Pacific Northwest, you know I love you. I read your smack talk, getting it out there, but just had to check you. Just had to check you a bit on that one. I welcome the smack talk. I do. I really do. I've got one last topic for you tonight, guys. I'm laughing at my own slug there in my headline, but man, are Big 12 schools going broke? Are ACC schools going broke? I think it's a legit question that needs to be asked here. And in relation to that, Cody Campbell could save the day with the Super League with Project Rudy, and we have an update on that. So let's tie it all together here, okay? CBS Sports wrote a nice piece about the latest on Super Leagues and where they stand. And obviously, anytime you're going to do that, Project Rudy will get brought up. If you need to get run up to speed on that, Project Rudy would take it is basically the best case scenario if you are, for the most part, a Big 12 or an ACC school not named Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, perhaps. Something that you probably want. It would take everybody, put it into a Super League of a capped at about 70 teams, divide you up geographically. So, imagine that. Back to conferences that really make sense. The idea that had been thrown around in the pitch decks early on was like 7-10 team conferences. There would still be it would be unequal revenue sharing. So your Alabamas, Texases of the world, Ohio States of the world, they're still going to make more money than everybody else, but it won't be probably quite as skewed as it would be right now in our Power 2 world. The big kicker here is that there would be some private equity money and they would pool all the TV rights. And so the idea is there would be way more money for everybody to pass around and split up, right? That's kind of your Project Rudy rundown. And a lot of the things that Cody Campbell has been pushing for, particularly pooling those TV rights, that's why I've always connected the two. Like, hey, Cody Campbell in a lot of ways is pushing for that. It's the thing that I think would be best for the overall health of college football long term, because if you're one of the Power 2 schools, you'd be, well, John, why the hell do I want that? Well, because long term, it keeps everybody much more viable, which is total lifeblood of the sport. You need that whether you want to admit it or not. All right. Here's the latest, according to CBS Sports. Conversations around Project Rudy have slowed in recent months, but remain ongoing with top schools in the ACC and Big 12, sources told CBS Sports. I mean, that's basically an unsurprising update there. I mean, that the SEC and Big 10 are not going to be messing with that for right now. I'm just happy to hear that conversations continue with teams in the ACC and Big 12. Somebody's got to keep it alive, man. Keep that spirit alive of Project Rudy. Don't let it die. Keep making sure that there's contact. It's in the lexicon. We're still getting articles and updates, and keep bugging them with it. Be persistent. Because the SEC and Big 10 want this thing to just go away. The more you can keep it in the conversation and in the national conscience is a good thing. Quote, it's such a cerebral thing right now, a high-ranking power conference executive told CBS Sports. It's on everyone's mind, but everyone in the industry views that coming from someone else on the outside. There's no one really working on it who is in college football right now other than an existential threat of the Big 10 and SEC picking up their ball and saying it's just us. Bob Bowlesby actually chimed in this article, which was interesting. Bob Bowlesby said, quote, what's going to be a byproduct of a Super League? There's going to be a bunch of traditional winners that are going to be traditional losers. Now, in this, Bob Bowlesby is talking about a Super League that would be very exclusionary, one that's going to cut off at more like 32 to 40 teams instead of 70. Says there's going to be a bunch of traditional winners that are going to be traditional losers. It's a zero-sum game. You take 40 schools and get a big TV contract, there's going to be 20 teams with a losing record at the end of the year, and they're not going to like it. And that is a huge reality that I don't know a lot of schools are really prepared to deal with. And the problem with it is that every single one of them will sit here right now on the outside and say, well, that won't be us. Of course, that won't be us. That's going to be the general attitude until it's you. Nobody thinks that they're going to get really sick, get a terrible disease until it's them. And it would be the same thing here. And so that would be kind of a told you so sort of moment eventually for a bunch of those schools. Think sort of like what Oklahoma is going through right now, but extrapolate that out to like 10 to 12 other brands, the scale of Oklahoma, and then you'll have that. That's another part of why I really don't think that these schools is in their best long-term interest to ever pull something like this. The final point that this article makes that I wanted to bring up, all four major conferences, they point out all four major conferences, Big 10 2030, Big 12 2031, SEC 2034, and ACC 2037, will see their media rights expire within the next 12 years. And there's a quote here from an expert in the article that says, quote, "It doesn't make a super league impossible, and it doesn't mean it won't happen. It just may take another decade and a half." And that was in response to the fact that the last TV deal there mentioned was the ACC, and that would be 2037, roughly enough a decade and a half from now, certainly a decade plus. I'm not going to lie, man. Everyone keeps talking about 2030. There's so much posturing and positioning. I don't know. Does the sport have it in it to wait that long for this to actually happen? Is that really possible, that there's enough of a runway that we would wait that long for it to really happen? I don't know. It just feels like there's too much nervous energy from everybody right now that seems like we're going to get there sooner than that. Now, let me tie all this in with, I opened the video by saying, hey, are Big 12 and ACC schools going broke? Okay, remember Jamie Pollard, I keep going back to that example, but the athletic director at Iowa State has said, we're going to have to figure something out, whether it's subsidies from the university or whether it's student fees. That's an increase. We need something to cover this $20 million every year if we're going to be viable and competitive and going to Sweet 16s and playing in Big 12 championship games. We're going to have to do that. And do we want to be Northern Iowa or Iowa State? Well, now we had somebody was able to get their hands on an entire presentation deck from the Virginia Tech athletic director, Whit Babcock, who I believe this was a presentation that was going to the entire board there very soon. And it's a really interesting thread. I'll pull it up here. If you want to, you'll be able to go check this out on your own if you want to see the whole thing. Because there really was a lot that was interesting fodder to chew on here. But the specific slide that I want to focus on, why is this not? Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. So the specific here, Doug Bowman was the reporter who was doing this. He said, Virginia law limits institutional subsidy of athletics to 20% by Virginia Tech. They are currently up to 15%. They're getting, I mean, look at that. They're getting a $37 million subsidy in fiscal year 2026. But he ends this by saying this feels like an ask for a lobbying effort to change that limit. So there are more slides here, more details here that he is saying all point to, and I don't need to go read you all the bullet points again. If you truly want to read it, at Doug Bowman 24/7, if you want to see the whole thing. But to me, the very intriguing part of that was, hey, they're going to try and go ask, like, we need more. We need more ability for the university to subsidize the athletic program here. And a ton of the other slides were about the impact of athletics on enrollment at universities and a lot of examples of how that's happened at other places. Cincinnati was actually one of them that got brought up with an enrollment increase after the playoff appearance in 21. And so I looked at that and thought, man, like, you already heard the warning shot from Jamie Pollard. Now you're seeing what Virginia Tech's athletic director is doing in trying to pull people on board from the board and saying, hey, like, guys, like, shine this light. Like, we're going to have to figure out a way to get more money, even more than the 15% we're getting, maybe more than the 20% that's allowed, if we're going to be able to do this. He also had the rev share projections out the next 5-6 years. And by the end of it, it was pushing $30 million a year. So like this, it will only increase. The more revenue that gets made in college athletics, the more that number increases every year. This is going to put major, major stress on schools. Like, I know I'm a Big 12 heavy audience here, but if you're a Big 12 school, if you're an ACC school, even if you are a school in the Big 10 or the SEC, it still is some stress, less stressful, but some stress nonetheless. In the ACC, we're going to have success in brand initiatives. That's going to hurt the income of some teams. It's going to hurt the payouts for some teams there. I think this is going to be such a common thing. And I think there's a lot of friction there right now because, look, if you're going to these universities and saying, that's what, 8 figures? We need 8 figures from you every year, or we need to pull 8 figures from the students in an extra fee, or a combination of both. I mean, that's not something that a university president is just going to be like, oh, yes, of course, go ahead. that's going to take a lot of time, I think, or at least there will be some battles that have to be fought, and you're going to see more and more of this. And there probably is a lot of this that's going on right now behind closed doors in the Big 12 that we're just not privy to, and we're not hearing it or seeing it. But that was kind of a reality check to me. Like, dude, I mean, this is the financial reality, and everyone's kind of having to go beg to the universities right now to make this happen. So keep your eye on it, man. Keep your eye on it. I mean, this is a good question. I see here from Fire Crotch Double Z. Love it, especially with the picture of the dog. That's great. How is Virginia Tech already getting that much help? At least Iowa State is self-sustained for now. Yeah, I mean, there's some schools. Arizona is a school that's getting a lot of help. Lots of schools are already getting a lot of help. And interesting part, Iowa State self-sustained. K-State, obviously, I'm very close to. Been self-sustained for a while. Point of pride going back to John Curry's time at the leading the athletic department. And I think that almost makes it tougher for those schools because that's been the expectation that's been set. That's been the precedent that's been set. And these universities are looking around like, wait, hold up. We're going from zero to what? You need how much? At least in the other situations, they're a little bit more conditioned to it. So, yeah, I don't know. Good luck. That's not a job that I want, being an athletic director, having to lobby for that and figure it all out. So a couple of super chats to finish it off here. Let's see. We've got Matt Ritson. What's up, man? Thank you for being here. Stanford has major cutbacks over 140 million. They've cut back on 30 athletic department staff. Yeah, I mean, and that's sad. That's really sad. I know TCU had to do some of that. At least there was, in particular, one staff member that seemed to be really beloved by a lot of college football media. And it sucks that, people like that have to basically pay the price for bad leadership in college football and college athletics over the last, name your date. When has there ever really been good leadership? But it has especially become out of control in the last 10 to 20 years. So yeah, that's a good call out there. Yet another example of it. And I hate that we have to talk about this, but this will be something I think that is going to stick around. Well, this is how we're going to end the show, unless a Utah fan bites back in the next 2 minutes. But Payson Cougar fan says Utah still sucks. Go Cougs! There we go. A nice battle today between BYU and Utah. Oh, we see Michael here. Michael, did I hear you may come out for the Holy War? I'm kicking around the idea, my friend. I have started some preliminary, put out some feelers for it. Now it's going to depend on a lot of things. Would it be credentialed, ticketed? What am I going to do? What are my access to certain things there? I think I could get flight taken care of pretty easily. I've got enough freaking points with West built up. But if I can figure it all out, I would love to make it happen. That's like a bucket list college football experience for me. And I love the scenery of the area. I would just love to make that trip out there again. Now, some of the complication there, Michael, is that I would also like K-State plays Utah in November. I would also like to get out to that. So I don't know if there's a way to swing both. That'd be cool. I may have to pick just one. So that's some of the calculus too, but it's on my radar, man. It's on my radar, and I very much appreciate this. Let's go, bring it back. I very much appreciate this. Hashtag Kurtz to Provo fun. You heard the man. Everybody. Thank you, Michael. Sincerely appreciate it. You were a great host last year, especially as your team was just absolutely drilling my team. So you're a very gracious, great host. Thank you, my friend. Okay. RW Coving. What's up? BYU will be better than advertised. Utah will finish 6-6. Ooh, K-State Tech conference title game. K-State wins. Both make the playoff. Buy or sell. Ooh, okay. Let's think through this scenario. K-State Tech conference title game. K-State wins. Both make the playoff. So you need Tech is going to have to be at minimum 11-1. K-State and Tech play each other in the regular season. So K-State could have win that game, and that would be the one loss for Tech. I think if Tech is 11-1 with the preseason hype, with who's on their schedule, because I feel like Texas Tech actually has a pretty manageable schedule this year. So do they have enough juice to be an 11-2 college football playoff team? They're at Utah. I think that could wind up being a game that looks really impressive. At K-State, like I said, maybe would need to win that. At Arizona State, you probably have enough juice there with those games. But I would say you need to win 2 of the 3 at Utah, at Arizona State, at K-State, and your one loss comes somewhere else. Preferably a loss earlier in the year. And then you go lose a really tight game. Like if we have a 2022 Big 12 championship game, overtime, K-State, TCU, if it's Baron Morton who's out there pouring his guts out on the field instead of Max Duggan and comes up just short, then yeah, I could see that. I could see that because Texas Tech will have the benefit of, I think they're going to start in the AP top 25. They have the benefit of all this offseason hype. They have the benefit of people thinking, like outside of Big 12 country, people thinking, oh, they have good players because we know about what they've been doing recruiting-wise and with the money. So I think Tech, being the team that you have there as the at-large in that scenario, works out about as well as anybody, sans maybe Arizona State. So I could buy it. RW. Thank you. That was a good one. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your thoughts, my friend. Pacific Northwest Ute. Opponent slogan versus Cougs. Bear down. Am I missing this? Sorry, I was trying to read your next comment there, Pacific Northwest Ute. Opponent slogan versus Cougs. Bear down. What am I missing here, guys? I don't get it, but Pacific Northwest Ute. Pacific Northwest Ute, throwing it out there. Okay. I'm just reading the comments here, getting caught up, guys. Anyway, okay, that's going to do it for me. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all of you guys. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. ofbnews.com. I've got the finale to the anonymous player survey coming out this week. Anything else I need to tell you guys? I hope you have a great week. We're getting close. We're getting close, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for a fun chat tonight. Appreciate all of your support. Thanks for helping me get to 5,000 subs to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You guys are the best. I will talk to you all soon, and hopefully very soon. Oh, Bear Bachmeyer. Okay, my bad. Pacific Northwest Ute. Yeah, that's bad by me. I'm an idiot. Sometimes you catch me flat-footed. You do an hour stream. Yeah. Next play, shrug it off. I'll be better next stream, guys. I promise. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.